I ain't none of these half-ass newcomers. You know how I do summer. I drop heat when you bring the sun up. The combo make niggas act up.
Okay, so a couple of Indigo notes ago, I made the point that history as it relates to the Bible isn't even that important. That the Bible really isn't a historical document. And that looking at it as a piece of history or trying to excavate Jesus's bones or whatever, this is foolish nonsense, right? I personally believe that Jesus might not have even existed, but that there might have been individuals like Jesus, which is why the story was written, right? In the world, which is what I consider to be Christ consciousness, right? And Jesus is really the story of Christ consciousness, right? So, yeah, and very much in the way that there's no historical value to religion. It's just like false flags having no real truth value. It's not the point necessarily, right? The point of a false flag is indoctrination, right? You're being indoctrinated by some sort of narrative, right? The point of religion is indoctrination. You're being indoctrinated into an idea or a belief. So yeah, I said this on my last Indigo Notes, and I was watching somebody's podcast, I think Joe Rogan or somebody. And by the way, I have no problems with Joe Rogan. He seems to want to get into some sort of debate or some sort of intellectual battle with me or some sort of number one, I look at myself as a little bit more evolved. No offense, that I wouldn't want to have that kind of conversation with that guy. Number two, I enjoy Joe Rogan's podcast a lot, and it gives me weird, odd cognitive dissonance when I know I'm being talked about on the show. Because I like him. I enjoy him, right? And I think he's funny, and I think not only is he funny, but the show is also interesting, and he talks about MMA, and so I think it's an interesting show. But again, I think he was nitpicking some of the work I've been doing and talking about, people say Jesus isn't historical, but James Cameron found Jesus' tomb, right? This happened, right? He said something like that, right? And I said, that's interesting. Now, as Jay-Z says, I ain't one of these half-assed newcomers, meaning I've been in this thing for a while, right? I've been in the esoteric knowledge community for a long time, right? Doing this kind of research and work for a while, right? And in 2010, I came out with a song called Perfect Balance with MAE, where I said the line, "Even though I know who ISIS is, I'm still afraid to call her." At this time, the main Islamic terror network was Al-Qaeda, right? But once I had said that, I literally saw the creation of ISIS happen right in front of my eyes when I said that line, right? And for the first time, I realized that they were trying to make people who were like me out to be terrorists. So doing this research for a very long time, I would say since 2008, since I left high school, like my first couple of years of college, 2007, 2008, right? Which to me is a pretty long time to be doing this kind of work. There's been some things that I've noticed. And one of the things that I've noticed is what I call the JC code, right? And the JC code is here also in this James Cameron Jesus tomb story. And to me, this story is obvious horseshit. Looking at the headline, special report, has James Cameron found Jesus' tomb, or is it just a statistical error? When I look at the Bible, I don't see it as a historical story, right? There's no historical value in it. That's not the point of it. You're looking for the wrong thing there. Now, we could break this down several ways. First of all, Cameron is 33 in gematria, right? But even deeper than that, James Cameron's initials are JC, just like Jesus Christ, right? So when I hear James Cameron found Jesus' tomb, immediately alarm bells go off in my head. It was like he's got the coded name JC. Now, I want to show you some other examples where I found this to be true. Okay, so Mel Gibson came out with the movie The Passion of the Christ, right? And the man who played Christ in that movie, his name was Jim Caviezel. And if you look at Jim Caviezel's name, Jim Caviezel has the initials, right? JC, like Jesus Christ, right? This is something that they do in Hollywood, right? It's a code, right? It's a mockery code, right? Anytime they want to use religion in Hollywood to make some money, they contact this sort of code, or they use this representative code. And who knows what it's for, but I just have noticed the pattern, right? Even when you look at a guy like JC, right? JZ, when we say the name, we look at it and it's spelled JZ. But really, when you're saying it, you're saying JC, right? As in Jesus Christ. What does Jay-Z call himself? He calls himself the God Hova, right? It's Hova to God, nigga, blasphemy, right? And that's such a brilliant line in itself, right? Because, Hova the God, nigga, blasphemy, he's being blasphemous, calling himself God, right? But for any man to call himself a God is blasphemous, right? That's the whole point in the line, right? For any man to call himself a God is blasphemous. Even Jesus Christ, to say he has a connection to God, isn't there some sort of odd blasphemy there? So it's kind of a brilliant line. But even deeper than that, he's part of the JC code as well, right? And again, they use this code as it's another form of the mockery of Christ, right? Just like the 33s are, right? It's just another, like we have our own Jesus Christ. Like we've created the devil has created his own Jesus Christ, or his own version. Okay, so I want to take you to the cover of this J. Cole mixtape, The Warm Up, right? And this, I just want to show you how deeply tied into this Jay-Z is, right? So we look at this J. Cole mixtape cover, and you see his name, and you see around the O, there are devil horns, and around the E, there's a halo, right? And that's the symbolism of the devil within the angel, right? So you have J. Cole, who has the JC code in his name, right? Which is that's the Christ mocking code, right? So you have a devil within an angel, right? And that's the thing, right? That the devil has created his own version of Jesus Christ, right? So the devil is still there, even though the halo is there as well, right? And with J. Cole's music, it's very much so like this guy who comes off as this kind of Christ figure in a way, right? He goes through this kind of suffering. People abuse him and torment him on Twitter and other things, right? So he kind of has this angel in a devil's presentation because of the hip hop aspect and the sort of negative energy involved with rap music, and right. But that's how deeply tied into this Jay-Z is, right? Into the JC code, right? He signed this guy J. Cole, right? So yeah, like I said, I ain't one of these half-ass newcomers, right? I'm not a half-ass newcomer in any sense of the word. So even when I hear certain things, it sets off alarm bells in my head that may not be set off in yours. So if I hear something like James Cameron found Jesus' bones, it's like, well, there's a lot of things in my mind that go, oh, okay, that's bullshit because of what I've seen and what I know, right? Some people could say it's foolish just to go off his name. But again, the patterns I've recognized have really not failed me up to this point. And I just know how they do things, and I know how they lie. And finding Jesus's bones or finding Jesus's tomb or whatever, it's just a lie, man. Flat out lie. And you got to stop letting these people lie to you. And you got to search for the actual truth. But there are some people in this world who they don't really care about truth, or they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in torment. And that's a whole other can of worms.